Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're now at the latter half of the Smart Communities X here at the siberXchange. And I think it's absolutely fitting that the session is about to begin with me addressing the folks from the town of Ajax, Mayor Shaun Collier and his team, Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford, Regional Councillor Sterling Lee, individuals who have made this possible in the new normal. Before I introduce them, I want to begin by thanking them for their vision, and more importantly, realizing that the new normal has made us understand that innovation is not set in stone, it's set in jello. It's not just about thinking how we can change things, but changing how we think altogether. My name is Ali Hirji. I'm the lead on the siberXchange advisory. I work at Durham College, and I've held numerous partnerships with the awesome folks at the town of Ajax. We're coming to you live from the beautiful St. Francis Center, again, here in the town of Ajax. This is on the land of the peoples of the Mississaugas of the Scugog Island First Nation, and the land is protected and governed under the Williams Treaties. You know, often you'll hear me say this is price is what you pay and value is what you get. That's how you need to look at investing in economic development. That's how you need to look at investing in people. We create strategies, but we invest in people. We empower people. When discussing smart communities earlier this morning, I made it absolutely clear that a smart community is not about the net sum of information communications technology. It really is about people, how you engage them, the processes you have in place, the governance that you have in place, and more importantly, zero trust from a security perspective does not mean zero faith, the faith that you have in the people. Mayor Collier, I want to again begin by thanking you for all of your faith and your trust in the innovation community. I'm going to turn it over to you to very quickly, again, introduce yourselves to our community that knows you quite well, but also tell us, what does innovation mean to you in the town of Ajax? Mayor Collier, let's begin with you.
Okay. Hi, Ali. Thanks for that introduction, and to my colleagues, Regional Councillors Crawford and Lee, for joining us again today. What does Innovation Village mean? Well, this started out as an idea back during the election times. We had some of our other municipalities were doing similar type things, and we have in 1855 in Whitby is a accelerator, which is a little bit different. What I had envisioned was to have an incubator / accelerator to take things right from start to finish. And we got involved with a lot of other different groups, the angel investor networks, that type of thing. So it just started off as an idea and a way to attract business, but as well as to sort of really invest and embrace technology and create an atmosphere of training and development. And this is going to be something that's going to be ongoing for a long time. We came across the Innovation Village concept just using 4 buildings that we already have. And we started off with that idea, and we were working on a business plan, and COVID came along.
Right.
So of course, everything changed and everything went out the window. And we're now looking at, do people still have an interest in sharing spaces, and how is this going to work in a new normal, and how are we going to keep moving this idea forward, and how we're going to fund it. And we don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars developing spaces that we can't have people in because you can't gather or people aren't willing. So we're looking at a number of different things, and we'll see where this goes.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for this aspect of consultation. And with that, I'm going to bring in Sterling Lee, and really, from your perspective, I want you to introduce yourself, but also, let alone just the concept of Innovation Village, just the concept of innovation. How have you been making sure that with your constituents, you've constantly been pressing home this message of why innovation needs to be at the heart of everything that we do, not just business, but even our day-to-day affairs with government? Sterling?
Thanks, Ali, and thank you again for hosting, and thanks for all the attendees from siberX for coming to this session. Innovation, well, first things first, my name is Sterling Lee. I'm a first-term regional councillor for the town of Ajax. Before this, I worked in tech, actually. I worked for Rogers for about 15 years, and after that, I worked for Microsoft for 2. So innovation is incredibly important to me because at the rapid change things are going right now, I'd never want the town I live in, the town I'm raising my son in, to fall behind. And I think it's easy to think of Ajax as a sleepy bedroom community off the lakefront, and it's, it has its quirks, but I want it to be a driving force for technology and innovation specifically, because I think that's obviously where the marketplace is going. Big box retail is about to expire. They're the dinosaurs of our world right now. So what we need is new ways of getting products, services to people. As Mayor Collier pointed out, COVID was a perfect example of this, where, we're all of a sudden realizing we don't need the 4 walls around us to be efficient and be productive. And my case I always use is before, when I was running during the election, was there's a small town in Georgia called Alpharetta, Georgia. Most people haven't heard of it, right? But they're about the size of Ajax with half the population. And one of the first things they did was create a tech nonprofit to just generate ideas and innovation and new ways of doing things. And now they're one of the tech hubs in the entire state of Georgia. They have 4 of their top 5 employers are tech-based companies. So I always tell my constituents, yes, from a property tax point of view, it's going to be amazing to have more businesses and more tech-based businesses. But for your own frame of mind, for your own benefit of your own town, we need these companies to invest in the town invest back in those companies. And it's this very symbiotic relationship that allows for very fast growth. Because again, we are late to the game regarding tech. We have, Oshawa has the 2 colleges and universities. Whitby has 1855. So Innovation Village represents our first chance at branding and signifying Ajax as a player in the tech space. If it was up to me, we would be the esports capital of Canada. But I think the first step is creating some sort of beach ground to set up base, and just Innovation Village is going to be that space for us.
Fantastic. In my earlier keynote this morning, I said, the promises of yesterday are the taxes that we pay today. And I want to commend you, Mayor Collier, as well, and Marilyn, for making promises, but most importantly, constantly consulting and engaging stakeholders. I do want our audience to know is that along with Mayor Collier, since late 2018, you've been constantly in touch with my students via Twitter. You've been constantly following. And more importantly, you've always been there in the audience. Not only have you wanted your message to be heard, but along with Mayor Collier, you've been in the audience. So I really appreciate the trust, the transparency, but more importantly, the humility. Thank you for that fantastic introduction and explanation. And I do want to come back to the example that you brought up a little later on, so hold on to that thought. Marilyn, you've been on a couple of sessions at siberXchange. You're a well-known star on this platform for being an advocate for many aspects of technology. Can you talk to us a little bit, again, just as is customary, introduce yourself, but can you also talk to us a little bit about not just the concept of Innovation Village, but for you, innovation has been, you're also looking at getting seniors involved. You're looking at getting other marginalized groups involved. Can you talk to us about what that experience has been like? Marilyn.
Thank you, Ali. I'm the regional councillor in Ajax. This is my 3rd term representing Ward 1. Prior to that, school board trustee for 3 terms. I think it's critical when you invest in training our students and protecting our seniors. There is huge value and investment return on that, and I think it's critical as keepers of our residents to train them in cybersecurity and make sure that they're aware of the risks involved, and also for students, the opportunities that are involved for employment.
I think the opportunities of employment ultimately come down to the aspect of independence and ensuring that seniors, for example, have a quality of life and quality of control. And innovation allows for that, right? So, we've spoken a lot about in our previous session, Connects Health, and some of the opportunities that has now realized for seniors to participate in the virtual delivery of medications, so on and so forth. So I really like the fact that you've been open, but more importantly, you've been innovative in a way where you haven't just put the no in innovation. You've been calculated, but you've been very, very careful in making sure that the right test beds and controls are in place to make sure that we can succeed collectively. Mayor Collier, I want to come back to you. And after this fascinating introduction, where we've not only heard about Innovation Village as a geographical concept in certain areas of Ajax, we've heard about the programs in place, we've heard about the vision about why innovation is important. But Mayor Collier, with I believe that's the award also that you had received from the Economic Development Council for Ajax, right behind you there. That award is testament to many things. And I think one of the things that I want to talk about is that for you, innovation hasn't just been about one geographical building. You've created opportunities for businesses to thrive, whether it's the BIA or whether it's certain select areas. You've created programs for business. Can you talk a little bit about what some of these programs are and how you've enabled them to innovate?
Well, I'm a big believer in trying lots of different things. If you only try one and it doesn't work, you're out of luck. But if you try 20 things and 2 or 3 of them work out, well, that's success to me. So we spent the first year, almost year and a half, just trying all kinds of different things, just looking at all sorts of different methods, all sorts of different ideas, and just threw a lot of stuff against the wall and saw what stuck. And a few things have worked out. We're actually having a lot of announcements now.
Yep.
That are the result of work we started a year and a half ago. And that award that you pointed out right there is the Innovator Award. I think is testament to that. When you have a provincial body like the Economic Development Council of Ontario recognize, and this is the first time a council has ever won this award, the Community Innovators Award, for our first 365 days in office, I think speaks to that, and just that idea of just trying lots of different things, just being really open-minded, seeking a lot of different advice from all sorts of different areas. And one thing we did, Ali, that I think worked out really well is partnering with places like Durham College and siberX. These are things that I knew nothing about cybersecurity. All I knew is that we probably weren't protected like we should have been, and that we did need to find out more about it. So I'm trying to think back what the original question was. Just to us, to being innovative, I think it just speaks to us trying all kinds of new things and just not being afraid to sort of test the markets and sometimes fall on your face, but get back up and just keep going. So that's sort of what we've done. I don't know if that actually answered your question in a roundabout way.
It certainly does, and it allows me to bring Councillor Lee back into the conversation. And I do apologize. I keep oscillating between Councillor Lee or Sterling and Councillor Crawford. If I call you with your first name, is that okay for you? Because that's a little easier for me. So let me know.
That is my name.
We're family, Ali. Whatever you need, buddy.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Sterling, let's go back to what Shaun had mentioned, and this was this aspect of, you should not be afraid of trying. You should be afraid of not trying. And one of the things that I've noticed that you've done ever since the pandemic is you've started to engage the community in different ways. For example, the show that you run, right? And you just, Durham Unplugged, you bring in folks to talk. You bring in folks to share. How important has it been for you to ensure that here in Ajax that everybody can share what it is that they're experiencing and creating those stories and creating those narratives? A, how important is it? And B, how do you act upon the stuff that you're hearing from businessmen, from businesswomen, from business leaders, from students, so on and so forth? Sterling?
Thank you very much. I think it's incredibly important. First and foremost, I created Durham Unplugged for my own sanity. I think COVID's had such a negative impact on everybody. I just needed to connect with my peers and throughout regional government and throughout the business community in Ajax. So it was, I just started a YouTube channel called Durham Unplugged, where I got to have informal conversations with my peers in regional council. And it's just a way to just kind of get to know people outside of politics. I think when people think of politics, they have a very specific view of the person, and it actually removes the humanity from the individual. So I just wanted to bring that back and get to know, and it gave me a chance to get to know Mayor Collier in a more less formal setting, get to know Marilyn in a less formal setting. So, and then in turn, the feedback I've gotten from that channel is that people have been like, oh my God, it's so great. Like, I didn't know you guys were interested in 80s music or in, these type of restaurants. And it enables people to kind of connect more with their leaders. from a business side, one of the things I made sure to highlight, and I always ask my guests to do, is highlight a nonprofit or a restaurant they would recommend. Because I just think right now, especially the nonprofit world, it's incredibly tough to adjust to this new normal that we've had to.
Yep.
And a lot of companies have had to pivot in a very short amount of time. So I just wanted to give those kind of companies, whether it's a business or whether it's a restaurant, a shout out and just give them a chance to get highlighted. And just, we have so many good food options in Ajax and Durham region. We have so many nonprofits that do such important work like Girls Inc. and many others, that it was just a great chance to highlight all the good work that they're doing.
Absolutely. And I think the onus of responsibility on using your platform extremely well, your positions quite well, and then more importantly, using the tools at hand. I think it's quite commendable how, from not just a social media perspective, but also from a creative perspective, creating different slogans, creating different movements. For example, if you look at Ajax's Twitter, you'll see it's Ajax Strong, or certain hashtags and movements that you've created, a sense of belonging that you've created with your communications practices. And I think we shouldn't undervalue how important that is. This session today is part of Smart Communities, and I mentioned this in my keynote, right? It's not just about we've plugged into the latest and greatest router, or we have the next gen firewall. It is about being smart of how we connect with people, how we collaborate with people, the governance that we have in place. Which takes me to a question where I want to bring Marilyn back into the equation. That is, you've been a huge fan and a huge promoter of creating programs to bring people together. Can you talk a little bit about what the value is from an innovation standpoint? Stuff like Seniors Without Walls. Collectively you folks have started that. You've ensured folks have stayed connected, and you've created other programs as well. Little Doctors Canada, a very good example of that as well. How important has it been to you to formalize such programs and keep them running? Marilyn?
Well, it's consistency. So I think with COVID, one of the major concerns we had was connecting and keeping our seniors connected with each other. So being able to, they were used to gathering in their little community centers and doing their community events that they were doing. And then they go from that to absolutely nothing. So it was important that we were with Seniors Without Walls was developed so that we would be able to give and offer an opportunity for seniors to reconnect with each other. And how how interesting is it that we had already done the AI with seniors, and we were giving them the preventative things, and now all of a sudden we're hooking them into technology to be connected with each other. And so it was I loved going to those sessions. I loved being part of Little Doctors because it was about watching how the community received the information for me. So I see the value in it. But then you sometimes wonder, does the rest of the community see the value in what you think is good? And so being able to be a part of the Seniors in AI, as I mentioned before, I am a senior, so I was there. And also being part on the other end of Little Doctors, because I have a granddaughter who actually watched it, and seeing their uptake on the information that was being shared. So it was great that we were able to I hate the word pivot, but we did. We pivoted and we created the Seniors Without Walls. I don't believe it was unique to Ajax. I believe Pickering had it. I think all the municipalities jumped onto it. And it was great to be able to keep our vulnerable population connected to each other and to us.
The aspect of vulnerability, especially under COVID-19, has definitely impacted different communities in different ways. Mayor Collier, you have made sure that at all times you've stayed true to all of the rules and regulations around the pandemic and kept the community safe, constantly issuing messages, constantly running lunch hour sessions on Fridays and coffee talks, so on and so forth. But I also noticed one thing is that you still kept the door open. And what I mean by that is, even during the pandemic, we noticed that you had engagements with AWS, you had engagements with other businesses. You've kept engaging the business community. What's your approach been like when it comes to dealing with opportunities with other businesses and showing them the opportunity in Ajax? What's the philosophy that you take, and what is it that you're looking to achieve by bringing some of these major players, soon IBM as well, to Ajax and showing them the opportunity there?
Well, That's two-part question. I think, I mean, we've worked very hard to attract new business, but one of the most important things that we can do, especially during this pandemic, is support our existing businesses that are having incredible challenges that nobody's ever thought of before or had to deal with before. And that includes us at the town of Ajax. We're basically like any other business. We have staff, we have lost revenues. So I wanted to make sure that we kept the communications open. We held a number, well, we worked very closely with the BIAs and with the boards of trade, and held a number of different information sessions to get that information out to the business owners. We put together we were the first community to put out our business recovery program, which is a number of areas that are helping businesses. But one of the other things I do, and I think I have several more of them next week, is just, again, reaching out to businesses one-on-one and just having those conversations with the owners. And you know, last week was with Loblaws, for instance. They have 1,000 employees in Ajax. You know, that's very important to them to know that we are there to help. One of the other things we're able to do, though, is to share resources. We had a number of businesses, when we reached out, you know, they have extra PPE. They had extra different things that we got to the hospitals, and we got to social workers or personal support workers in the communities, and people that needed these things but couldn't source them. We also did some things like, right now we're creating, one resident actually created a restaurant online directory of everything that's open, but we're doing that with PPE, for instance, right, and with where you can go for different things that you might need. And we're creating those directories as a town of our local businesses. So again, trying to promote, trying to support, and it's worked out well. So we'll just continue that with that open dialogue. And you know, I picked up a number of very good points just in the two that I did earlier this week, yep, that we're going to take back, and we can, again, share that with some of our other businesses and help them. As far as new businesses, I mean, I would love to have tons and tons of tech companies, but it doesn't look like we're getting tons of tech companies coming here. We're getting a lot of logistics types things. So we're looking at how can we assist with the technology in warehousing and logistics, for instance, things like robotics, things for drones for counting inventory, that it's all automatic selection now when these orders are going out. So again, we're hoping to partner with a lot of these companies as well. But if during the pandemic we just sat back on our hands and didn't do anything, a lot of these opportunities are going to go away. Absolutely. So it is important to keep engaging, keep going out, trying to ask about this, and just, you know, keep developing those relationships, whether it be existing or new business and technology we're trying to attract.
Absolutely. I think a fundamental foundational pillar of innovation and smart communities is this aspect of access and being accessible, not just being accessible to businesses, but giving them access to resources, giving them access to support. And again, I want to commend you on a fascinating job that you have done with ensuring that access is a topmost priority for your team and for your community. Sterling, we'll come back to you because along with the question of access comes the question of talent and capacity. Now, in all of your introductions, you did mention that there isn't a formal academic, a post-secondary presence, although I would argue that with what we do with the AI and Ajax series, we have another series next week, I believe on the 18th or the 19th, I apologize, on computer visioning. So speaking about drone technologies and how do those actually take pictures of products and how do they parse that? And we'll be doing that session along with Collier Innovations that do robotics for agriculture. You know, we've had a lot of engagements, but you've also had to create your own programs to build capacity, to build talent, to build opportunities. Sterling, can you talk to me a little bit about, and anyone else can feel free to chime in, on the Up Next program that's running or that's about to run in Ajax? I am on the planning committee, and we've had 2 meetings. A shout out to the economic development team who consistently run it. And you know, one thing that I will say, and you'll forgive me for taking 30 seconds here, is when you join different councils and committees, sometimes it's ceremonial, but you really put in what you see the other party putting in. And the way you guys plan your sessions, the way you make sure that everyone stays on top of things, the process is very well documented and keeps us as advisors well engaged. So thank you for that. Sterling, back to you. Programs like Up Next, why is this important? First, tell us what is it? Why is it important?
So Up Next Ajax, it's a job skill and development program for we'll call them young adults, though I guess they're adults because it's from 18 to 29. And generally, we pair them off with business owners, business users, and they're able to get real world experience to help them understand what it means to be a candidate in today's job system. The hardest thing when you're done university or starting university is, what do I do for a job? And often we end up in retail and the food industry, which is great. You learn a lot of work ethics. You learn some really key tenets in business. But I don't really think it may not rely to your field of study. So Up Next Ajax will try and pair, like I said, business owners with students or young adults and connect them with real world applications of the things they've learned or the things they want to learn to see if it's something they want to continue in or if it's something they realize, oh, this is not what I envisioned. This is not as sexy as I wanted it to be. And so it's not the best fit for me. But I think the key thing it teaches is just some of the real world skill sets required that may not be taught at higher education from university. I would definitely say I learned more for my 2 years working at Microsoft than my 4 years getting my BA in English and poli-sci. That's not to say that I didn't get anything out of my university experience, but in terms of real world applications of setting goals, gauging metrics, et cetera, I learned that from real life work application from Microsoft. So it's just a great way to connect these kids really early on. I say kids, sorry, these adults really early on to ensure that they're best prepared to enter the workforce.
But I think the aspect of mentioning kids is important because we're seeing, for example, at this very center, and it seems like ages ago, I think it was September 26th, 2019, and Mayor Collier, you graciously had joined us for a few minutes, and then you had to run to your town hall. We did the AI Tech Talk, AI in Healthcare, here at the St. Francis Center. And the keynote speaker, Marilyn, you may remember, was a 14-year-old Ria Karumenchi who developed the Smart Cane. Fascinating speaker. This aspect of kids innovate as well. Kids are entering the workforce at different ages. There are a lot of youngsters in Ajax doing a lot of fascinating things, and they're getting entrepreneurial, and they're getting to that stage where they're talking about what does it mean to commercialize an idea that I have, which takes me back to Marilyn, because Marilyn, you've been heavily involved in ensuring that your school boards in Ajax, of course the Durham District School Board, the Durham Catholic, whatever the different school boards are there, you've made sure that at the school level that they're also aware of programs like Up Next Ajax, so on and so forth. What have some of the strategies been that you've used to ensure that our younger students and the kids in the community also begin to realize the importance of working, studying, and living in Ajax and entrepreneurship?
Well, I think that from just being involved in the school board, we learned very early on that kids are like sponges, and no longer do they enter into kindergarten to just have playtime and naps. So the curriculum really was adjusted about 2 or 3 years ago, where they actually started, go figure, started teaching them bite-sized parts of the real curriculum. So, and I can attach. It's been very interesting because both my kids went through the same school. Now my granddaughter's in the same school, and what my granddaughter is learning at a much earlier age, my kids did not have that until much later in their school year. So they know already that kids have this ability to learn and to retain. And I was just thinking when you were talking about, that kids in Ajax probably have a lot of great ideas, how frustrated they must be when they don't feel like they have a place to go to actually expand or grow whatever it is that their technology, if that's where their thing is. And so isn't it great that the Innovation Village in the student part of it, where we wanted to train kids in cybersecurity, that it gives them an opportunity to say, this is exactly where I want to go. They might not actually even know it until they get involved in it. So, and partnering with the school board is one of the things that that we wanted to try to do when IceVR was coming up. That's exactly where we wanted to hit. Was in the school, and then we had a school strike, and then on and on and on. Life just weird stuff just happened in the world, so it just didn't happen. We're hoping that once whatever our new normal looks like, hopefully we can get back to exactly where our plan was for IceVR. It may look very different, but it'll be same on that same educational piece. And we were also looking at a group coming in called the Little Hackers, and they were little kids, like they were kids that were like 7, 8, 9, 10, who hacked for good. And would be able to come in and teach other children the ability to hack and recognize hackers and use their hacking for good, not bad. So we were looking at that at that company also.
And, just a little bit of a spoiler alert, but I won't reveal too much for our audience is, all hope has not been lost. We did the Global Cyber Olympics last year. We were thinking about bigger and better in person this year, but a new competition is about to be announced in the next week or so, which will focus on the aspect of pen testing. And I want to commend Mayor Collier again for making sure that, companies realize that they have opportunities here to create opportunities for kids and for you to allow that to happen, and more importantly, to create access between these companies and the talent in Ajax. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in the world of pen testing and challenges around how do you get into a system from multiple domains, this competition might be something you'd be interested in, and you will be able to apply and submit your team online, 100% free and complimentary to participate. There is a small screening process. You'll learn about that shortly. Mayor Collier, I want to build...
Could I just add too, that Ajax High School has a very large drone club that they have. We're hoping that we can connect back with them on that. And also, J. Clark Richardson is really at Tech High School. So there's been schools. The school is working in technology and trying to do their own thing, and so the partnering of all of that would be really critical.
And I will attest to the fact, from across Ajax at the AI Hub, we have numerous students who live in Ajax and currently are working out of their homes in Ajax. Great infrastructure and some pretty fine talent coming out from the community. So yes, well said, and thank you for bringing that point up. We've got another 20-odd minutes left, and Mayor Collier, I want to bring it back to you just a little bit around the role that you've played in making sure that you're at the table and that Ajax is at the table. Since you assumed office and you build your team, you've been at every conference that you can potentially attend to, if taken on opportunities to even just introduce me of all people and say, the next speaker is Ali. You've made sure that you've been there, not just, as I said before, not just as a speaker, but in the audience. You've really gone from, whether it's CISO Forum, whether it's sessions in Ottawa, you've been at the forefront of representing the community and engaging. What, in your opinion, is the importance of such engagements and these conferences? What value is it bringing to the message you're trying to drive and the policies that you have for economic development?
I think it's more, actually, to be honest, more about educating myself, just getting out and participating in these things so I can learn more. I know, and I'll use smart cities, for instance. It's something that interests me. I do embrace technology, but I didn't know anything about it. So I wanted to go out and learn and educate myself. So then we could bring those things here and start initializing those things and hopefully find efficiencies in our town and in our processes where we can, do things more efficiently and save money and use our resources better. So for me, it was more of a selfish nature in educating. I guess at the same time, I'm out sort of building those bridges, telling people about the town, telling people about our successes, and just that we are very willing partners and willing to work with these other businesses and hopefully get them to come here. I mean, Durham College, for instance, I've been wanting to have a presence, a campus of some sort from a post-secondary education here. Having our partnership with Durham College and the AI Hub and starting to teach the CTIA program here, which is the first time that Certified Threat Intelligence program has been taught in Canada.
Yep.
and it happened in Ajax.
Yep.
I mean, that wouldn't have happened if we weren't out meeting with people, if we weren't at the CISO conference, if we weren't building those bridges and sort of
Absolutely.
forging the partnerships. So it's a number of different reasons why, but
Yep.
I mean, you can never have too much education. You can never, the more stuff you know, the better, and helps me do my job and helps our team do their job, and help move us forward from our economic development focus as a town as well.
Yeah, I think if I can add to that is, one of the elements that I've always said is one of the differentiating factors that I've seen is it's not just about economic development, it's about responsible economic development. I'll give you an example is that, as when we held Global Cyber Olympics and we had EC Council come out and we had, teams from about 10 different countries, so about 100 players stay in Ajax. So, if you do the math, they rented rooms in those hotels. They bought food there, and siberX was obviously the chief sponsor of that event. But they ended up buying hotel space. They ended up buying food. They ended up using transit. All of those things. But there's more to that, right? It's not just about, hey, come to Ajax and let's do an event. It's about giving them that experience, right? And I think that ability to understand what happens at conferences, why people come to a community, is really important, and that gets you to see what else you can do in Ajax. I know that this probably doesn't, sit left, right, and center for people. When they look at something like Global Cyber Olympics, they look at, wow, you got all these hackers in town, they played a competition, and they won something, and they left. Actually, it was more than that. That ceremony that we held at the Audley Rec Center, where not only did we, they ate good food, but we already, we got them into different chants, we got them into cheering, we got them into celebrating. It's all about giving people that work-life balance, showing that you can work hard, you can enjoy yourselves in Ajax, and you can feel at ease with some of the stressful environments that we're in. And the world of cyber is very much that. So when people see there's a vibrant culture here, there's opportunity to share, there's opportunity to learn, it makes a big difference. And for me, that's a fundamental part in responsible economic development. And I do thank you for constantly taking the time, even if it's for half an hour, to come to these sessions, be present. Even a quick tweet, it shows some recognition. And to students and to folks like myself, it means a lot coming from a mayor. So thank you, Mayor Collier, for that. Sterling, I want to come back to you now with regards to, we were talking a little about various programs that are in place, but there are also various pilots that are in place, whether it's related to recycling, whether it's related to areas around the waterfront, various projects and pilots that you've initiated along with various members of council to engage businesses further. Can you talk a little bit about what some of these pilots are and what the returns are on these kind of programs?
Well, I think it's just a matter of encouraging businesses to understand that Ajax, to the mayor said, we want to try different things. We want to be part of different programs. So one of them that actually Marilyn was a big part of was the Durham region's test site for the blue box lid pilot project, which is a mouthful. I apologize, but long story short, we identified at the region that there was a problem with recycling during windy days would blow off. So the next obvious solution is we need a lid for these recycling boxes. But rather than use plastics, which cannot be, recycled. Ultimately, if I'm not, Marilyn can correct me, but I think we use a lot of reusable material from what was the material?
Landfill mining from Blackstock or
right.
Dug them up from the landfill.
So we dug it up from the landfill, repurposed it, so now it's completely useful, and it's just a way of just showing that, to your point, Ali, we are embracing different innovations in Ajax. Automated speed enforcement, something I think most of us campaigned on. Listen, one of the biggest complaints you get when you're a municipal leader is that people are driving too fast on the streets. So fine, if I can't drastically increase the police presence, why don't we use technology to nail excessive speeding? And we participate in the Durham Regions project with that. And, we caught, in part of the pilot, part of the testing phase, so we're not actually issuing tickets yet. We had someone drive 196 kilometers an hour on one of our roads. 196. I don't even drive that fast on the 400 series highways, and we're getting that on our local roads. So obviously there's a need for this. And again, it's the idea of Ajax embracing technology, embracing new ways of removing the physical legwork and just letting computers and machines do the work for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, does that answer your question?
No, it absolutely does. And I want to pick up on something here because I know Marilyn will have a comment to make on this. And that is this aspect of letting computers and machines do things for us. Marilyn, in keeping with the spirit of responsible economic development, one of the things that you've been doing very, very strongly is making sure that the community doesn't just have blind trust in technology. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you've made sure that, or are continuously making sure that as you embrace more technology, you're embracing it not just with a well thought out process, but with a critical mindset as well. From seniors to youngsters to everyone in between, you've made sure that you've been advocating a lot about data privacy, data security, and all of these elements. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think you give me credit, a lot of credit. I think one of the, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is where you're going with this, is simply about maybe new users on some of the social media sites,
Yeah.
where you click on things like, I remember back in, it was past April last year when you came with the seniors and we were talking about the age thing, where you
Yes.
post a picture of yourself now and then
Yeah.
what you looked like 10 years ago, and how that was really the Facebook really collecting data on, and then all of a sudden, or I'm a huge advocate for working out and everything, and all of a sudden then I start seeing stuff on my Facebook about diet pills and those kinds of things, because it looks at what I'm posting and says, oh, if she's doing all of that, then she must be needing something like this, or maybe she needs to try to lose weight, or maybe she needs this. And so we talked about that why those things happen, and how easy it is for us to go on those. And I'm very guilty of this, where you click on something and it's, who are you going to be married to in 25 years? And it's, I don't know who it is, but it's somebody. 25 years I'll be dead, so it won't matter. But I mean, they do this, and everybody thinks it's just fun to say, oh yeah, that's what I want, that's what I look like, that's what I'm all about, that's what my last name's all about. And then, but in the background, how much they're collecting data on who you are. And I don't really know what my husband, he gets so mad when I do that stuff. So I've stopped doing that because it gets him really angry. So but it's all about clickbait, right? And so we need to continually educate new users, whether that's seniors or, again, our young children. And if we've known anything about social media, how dangerous it can be to post a single picture that shouldn't have been posted on Facebook. And even when you hit delete, it's never gone. It's still there. Somebody else will be able to pull it up. And how important it is that we treat our social media with respect and understand that there is danger in being involved in some of this stuff. So that's really important.
Absolutely.
And Ali, if I could add on to that, I think this is the next big fight in terms of the world. It's protecting our privacy, protecting our information. I think we've taken for granted because, hey, Google Home allows simplicity in my life. I can just say, hey, Google, play this, it'll play that. But as my Google literally went on just now, I apologize. But as leaders, as political leaders, we have a responsibility to ensure that the privacy of our residents are maintained. So Mayor Collier mentioned smart cities. Smart cities has such potential to make day-to-day life for our residents easier. Absolutely. But at what price? If the price is now a third company or even one of the major telecoms gets access to the metadata of all our residents, is that something A, that we as the leaders are comfortable with, or B, our residents themselves, because they may not have realized that now all their metadata, or possibly some actual data, is being held by a company that they're not comfortable with. So I think it's incredibly important going into this next wave of technology, IoT, and self-thinking machines, that we also put stop measures to make sure that the glitz and glamour of the technology isn't just hiding a more nefarious principle behind it. For example, TikTok is a very good example of that. The more I read about on TikTok, the more I vehemently tell my friends and family, don't download TikTok. It is just malware, right? Under the guise of you get to watch someone lip sync, right? So I think, again, going into the next wave, as we start making decisions of modernizing and automating our municipalities, we do so in a responsible way that protects the rights of our citizens.
And also, just mentioning too about, you were saying Google and Alexa, like they have ears. So I was saying in my power hour that my husband and I, we make sure that our mics are always off on our phones and, and Facebook and all that stuff, right? And so we were talking about a particular product. And the next thing I know, I have emails coming in about all of these products. And I'm like, how did this happen? And we suddenly realized it's because we have this thing in our kitchen that tells us that there's somebody at the door, but it's also listening to all of our conversations too. And it's that suggestion. And so it goes way beyond just social media. We put these things in our lives to make our lives go easier, and yet it's kind of listening to everything that you're saying, right?
And more to the point, these targeted ads are getting really good. I'm buying stuff I never would have bought in my life. But all of a sudden, like I have this random thought and it shows up on my screen. And now I'm spending $20 on something I don't really need, but I'm kind of a tech hound. I like this kind of stuff. But again, that's scary that they're able to figure out now, not just like the broad scale of I'm talking about beds, here's a bed frame, but here's a magnetic charger for your phone that you never ever talked about. But through the algorithm, they figured out it's something you'll probably end up buying because it's working.
Absolutely. If you recall, Marilyn and Sterling, when I did my first AI talk and we talked about security, I said even that act of switching off the mic, even silence is a data point. That says something. That can be computed. That can be fed into an algorithm as well. These algorithms are very, very robust and very, very agile and versatile. I want to hold this thought a little bit and use it as a staircase to go back to Mayor Collier and sort of weave in a question here. Mayor Collier, one of the things that is quite impressive about your approach has been around transparency. And it's obvious to all of us at the start. Every Monday at the start of it, a nice image comes out saying this is what my public schedule is like. Here's where you can contact me, etc. If possible, can you talk a little bit about how much does this get you worried about your security in some senses? Or how much has all this talk about cybersecurity got you thinking about how much you share? Are you just willing to be open and transparent? Or do you also think a little bit about some of the cybersecurity implications of how much you put out?
Well, I think about it now. I didn't used to think about it as much before. I mean, here's an example of my high tech. This is the piece of tape that I put over my camera when I'm not doing a Zoom call. That's we talked about education, and I mean, I used to do some of those things that come up, like I don't know, those, but I realize now it's data mining. They're just getting your information. So I don't do those anymore. If I see something that interests me, I won't click the link. I'll actually go and type the website into the search bar and go directly outside of. I'll never click on a link on any of those things because all of a sudden you start getting all these pop-ups for all these different ads that you never. So I know it's out there, but at the same time, I'm responsible to almost 130,000 residents, and one thing that really frustrates me is when people say, "Oh, damn politicians! I mean, you guys don't do anything." I'm like, okay, well, here's what I'm doing. So I put that out, so nobody can say you're not out in the community, you're not doing these things. We keep it a little bit vague. I mean, it doesn't usually have exactly where I'll be or exactly who I'm meeting with. It will say meeting with Ajax business, but it won't say what the business is, and it won't say where the meeting is. So it's just about, being transparent so people can see that you are active, you are working, you are in the community, but we don't give that much information. On the other side, though, as far as communication, I mean, my cell number is the only phone number I have, so it's published everywhere. And I get lots of calls from lots of places that aren't really town related. So that, might be something I might want to look at. But But again, from the residents' point of view, that's important. If they want to reach out, and a lot of them are actually surprised when I answer the phone because they think they're going to get my assistant or something.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, I guess, to answer your question. Just I'm very aware, and I try not to do too much. But as far as being concerned about my security, no, or about my safety, no, I'm not. Ajax is a safe place, and you know, I have some followers, a really nice fan club that kind of attack me a lot on social media, but that's as far as it goes. There's nothing outside of that.
And I think zero trust has been one of the riding themes of this conference. And I think, you know, when you get the chance to read up a little bit about the philosophies around zero trust and security, I think you'll find that you've adhered to quite a few of them whilst maintaining transparency. We have another 8 minutes or so, and I want to go to another question. And Sterling, I'll come to you. And this is, since you had mentioned about your background both with Rogers and with Microsoft, often people think that you know, technology and tech innovation is about, you know, we've got space and we've got like a swanky tech hub where you've got the latest and latest gizmos, you've got nice screens like this. Not to say that this isn't important, it is, but there's also the back-end infrastructure. There's the last mile. There are other things that around access to infrastructure that really can make a tech center a tech center. What's your perspective, and I'll just reshape the question a little bit, what's your perspective on, besides looking at bringing people around technology, what about bringing data centers to Ajax, for example? What about bringing more telcos to establish a consolidated presence in Ajax? Any perspective on this, Sterling?
I think very much like the mayor, if you're a tech-based company and you're looking for a place to settle, I would very much say Ajax is your place to go. You know, you have a great, fantastic balance of, you know, a lakefront community, great prices on housings, very close to Toronto by transit or by driving. And most importantly, we're one of the most diverse communities in Ontario, if not the entire country. And that says a lot to the type of clientele and type of workers you're going to get. I'm all for that. And, you know, to your point, it goes beyond just the glitz and glamour of, you know, I have X amount of machines, I have X computer speeds. There's also branding too. And this is where I give our economic development department a ton of credit. You know, they're working hand in hand with these businesses to make sure they're properly marketed through the municipal framework. You know, we can't openly advocate for a single business, but we'll advocate for all of them. And if you're willing to work with us, our town is willing to work with you to ensure that you're properly, you know, probably showcased throughout the entire community, which is why, you know, some of our local restaurants, they're thriving even during COVID because they've built this loyal community base, and that's in no small part to part of the work that our ACD team does in partnering with these local businesses and ensuring that they get showcased. And that'll work whether you're a business of 1 to 10 or 999 to 10,000. If you have a giant data center, I think it's absolutely, because again, we have great restaurants, we have great people. And I think once businesses start setting up shop here, it'll snowball into realizing that the potential of Ajax being this, you know, pseudo tech capital of Durham region, if not Ontario.
I think if I can also add to that is, you know, that conversation around data centers and creating exchange points from a technical perspective. I think Ajax is well situated because of the investments in security. And I've said this repeatedly, right? It's not just about the next generation firewall or how quickly you can get patches in place or the pen testing environments that you said. It's about the awareness as well. The ability that now Ajax can talk. I mean, just look at it, right? From CISO Forum to now, the way all of you, and I know, Sterling, you have a background in technology, and everybody else has different specialist skills, but the way even Marilyn and Shaun are talking about security, the awareness piece, just knowing what you don't know, but also knowing what you know well, is important and instills a level of confidence. And I think that's one of the reasons that in the last siberXchange, when Shaun had introduced the folks from AWS and the lead for healthcare practice for AWS, you know, they don't always come out to sessions, but the fact that they came out, they wanted to be introduced by Shaun, says something about, you know, Ajax being open for business and open for technology in a responsible way. We have another 3 or 4 minutes, and I have one question for Shaun, one for Marilyn, and then we'll wrap up with some concluding remarks, after which we'll then be taking the St. Francis Center and beaming in friends from Caribbean who are going to be talking about Canadian and Caribbean innovation, which should be quite interesting. Shaun, the question for you is about the relationships and partnerships that you've also built and maintained with the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade. You know, you've from the breakfast to the Mayor's Gala, all of these things that you're doing. How important is it for you to continue the growth that you're doing with the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade and such associations? Shaun?
Oh, it's incredibly important. That is sort of the center hub for business.
Yep.
We've got 2,000 businesses in Ajax, and many of them are members of the Board of Trade. And that is sort of the hub where people go for education, for networking. I'm a very big proponent on buy local, buy Canadian. And, you know, if it was up to me, we would, everything that we use in the town, whether it be vehicles to paper to whatever, would come from local businesses. Now, we're not allowed to do that, but I think it's incredibly important to have those opportunities for businesses to network like that and you know, build those relationships themselves so people are using local products. That's one of the things we really pushed heavily was the takeout. I thought it was takeout Tuesday, but as it turns out, it was takeout Wednesday, but support local business. Yeah. All through COVID, we were just really pushing for people to get out. We know and recognize the businesses were struggling and to get out and help them, whether it be support local or buy a gift card or whatever that you can use later. I mean, that's the sort of things and the programs we try to do. So I think incredibly important to foster those relationships and with those organizations and even look at building new ones and coordinating with. We're part of the region of Durham, so we have the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade, but we also have others across the region. Absolutely. And to have those conversations so we can, you know, if they've figured something out that we haven't yet, or share ideas on how we're dealing with things, or where did you get, you know, a source for N95 masks, or, you know, it's all very important. So I think they are very important. It's something I want to continue to do. It's also a way to get a lot of the local businesses also live here. So again, a good way to interact with their local government that represents them. So a lot of wins come out of there.
I think this openness to interaction also speaks to the last question that we have. And Marilyn, I'll take it to you, and then we'll wrap up with some closing comments. And Marilyn, this is the aspect of creating a safe space for exchange. Correct me if I'm wrong, and if something has changed, I do apologize. Ajax taking the role of a sanctuary city, Ajax ensuring that you can bring in diversity, that you can make safe spaces for folks to engage. And I also am well aware of the Anti-Black Racism Committee that has been established and all the steps that you take. Marilyn, the question here is talking about when you have immigrants coming into the community, English is often not their core language. Are you looking at diversifying some of the delivery mechanisms? Are you looking at different languages? Are you looking at ways in which you can also engage differently able learners? I don't know if you have any perspective on that, Marilyn.
I think that we just recently hired a diversity and inclusion coordinator. Yep. And through that, we're hoping to be able to really expand on that whole responsibility. Again, I think that I'm just thinking about the website. If there's an opportunity, I know the Durham Region website has opportunities for different languages. Yes. Where you can click on it and what you need to read will be in your language. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm not 100% sure if Ajax has that. Do we have that, Shaun?
We have a service that okay. We can call where it's a telephone-based service that can provide translation to any language.
Okay, yeah. So
we do subscribe to that because we are 54% diverse. So when you have that many different community members, we need to be able to adapt.
We're certainly very excited about the anti-Black racism task force that has been enacted to see what some of the recommendations will come out of that. We're looking forward to hearing from that once that gets up and established. And I guess for me, it's a journey that I'm on. Yesterday, I had a really great conversation with David Mitchell, just talking from his perspective from the Youth Justice Department on, where we really need to go, both as a region, as a town of Ajax, what are the expectations from our leaders that have been living this and seeing what's happening out there all the time. So I'm open to any discussion. We want to get better at what we do. I just think about, when I first became elected, your perspective is grass cutting, garbage pickup, and wow, like this whole last 6 weeks, 6 weeks to 8 weeks, my whole perspective has changed like 100%. I've always been about community meetings and being in touch and tangible, talking to people all the time. And now, now I'm looking at Zoom community meetings, and like it has changed my entire look on how my job looks. Sorry, I know we're over time now.
Thank you, Marilyn. And the closing comments, I'll give it to Captain Lee. Who's the next guest on Durham Unplugged?
The next guest, we have MP Ryan Turnbull from Whitby. I've never actually met him personally, so it's just a good way for me to get to know him. So we're looking forward to meeting him. So go to youtube.com, look up Durham Unplugged, and you'll see all the episodes.
When you meet him in person, you will realize he is a very, very tall individual.
Very tall.
Well, my friends, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to make some concluding remarks, and thank you once again to our audience that tuned in. I've always maintained this, that when it comes to our friends at Ajax and for my students, and my students often ask me, why have I been so close with them, and why do I constantly impress upon them the importance of AI and Ajax? And that's because when it comes to Ajax and innovation, it's always been about showing you what's possible. And showing you what's possible, like the studio, is not just about where you can go, it's about how far you can go. And look at this very studio. In this time of the new normal, nobody would have imagined engagements in this nature, but the ability to create space and get folks to invest in such technology, showing them how far they can go. One thing I'll tell you about Ajax, they never say no. They don't always say yes, but they never say no. And they're open to ideas, open to discussing and sharing. Shaun, Marilyn, Sterling, thank you so much for your time, and thank you once again for making siberXchange happen. I will definitely talk to you next week about the competitions that we're planning to run. Have yourselves a good weekend and a happy Friday.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.